Hi, I'm Nancy with Red Leaf Digi-Scrapping. Thanks for joining me. This tutorial will show you how to build on the folded corners tutorial to turn that folded corner into a rolled corner. So if you haven't done that tutorial yet, you'll need to do it first and then continue on with this one. To create a rolled corner, you start by following the same steps that you follow to create a folded corner. So if you haven't done that lesson yet, go ahead and do it now, but stop before you add the drop shadow because we're going to do that step a little bit differently. So I'm going to zoom in on my folded corner just to make it a bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. And we're going to start off by adding some dimension to this. Right now it's very flat, but of course a rolled corner is going to be lifting off of the page. So down in the toolbox towards the bottom you'll see a sponge tool. If you click on that and hold, you'll get the flyout menu that also has the dodge and burn tools. We're going to start off by using the burn tool, and that will just make what you brush over a little bit darker. So making sure that the corner layer is selected in your layers palette. I'm just going to start by brushing a little bit over the tip of the corner, and you can see how that has come in darker. And then also a little bit over the folded edge, and bring that in darker as well. Next I'm going to go back and select the dodge tool, and if you need to adjust your brush size when you're doing this, you can either slide the slider bar up in the menu here, or you can actually just use the square arrows on your keyboard and toggle your size up and down. So I'm going to add some highlights here, and you can see now how the dimension is starting to come in. It's really starting to look as though this corner is curled. The next step is to add the drop shadow. So to do that, I'm going to add a new layer in the layers palette. And I need to select a color for the drop shadow. So I'm going to click on the set foreground color box. And to begin, I'm going to select a color out of my paper that's a fairly neutral color. So you'll notice when I move my cursor from the color selector dialog box out onto my work area, it turns into the eyedropper tool. I'm going to select a nice neutral color there, so that gets me into the tone of colors that I need for the shadow. And now I'm just going to select a fairly dark brownish color for the shadow. Click on OK. Now the next step is to select, go back to the move tool, and we want to actually select this triangle shape. So to do that, hold down the control key on your keyboard and click once on the icon that indicates the corner. And you'll see the marching ants appear around your corner. And now we need to soften that selection a little bit so that it doesn't have hard straight edges. So to do that, click on Select, Feather, and we'll leave the feather radius at 10 pixels. That'll soften it up just a little bit. Now making sure that your new shadow layer is selected, go over to the toolbox and click on the Paint Bucket tool, and then click once inside the marching ants and you'll see your shadow come in. Go back to the Move tool, and I'm going to deselect that selection now. Next I'm going to drag the shadow in between the corner and the background paper, since that's where it belongs. And I'm just going to turn off the visibility of the corner layer for a moment just by clicking on this little eye icon. And now with the shadow layer selected, you'll notice that it's very opaque. It doesn't quite look like a shadow yet. So we're going to change the blend mode and just click the drop down arrow beside the word normal and select multiply from the drop down list. And now you'll see that the pattern on the paper is starting to come through. So that's starting to look a bit more like a shadow, but it's still fairly dark. So I'm going to adjust the opacity just by sliding the slider bar back a little bit on the opacity selector. And right about there looks good, so I'm going to leave it there. We can always come back and make adjustments later. And I'll turn that corner layer back on. Now what I'm going to do is drag out the edges where I'm indicating with the mouse so that it looks like the corner is actually lifting off of the paper. And to do that, we're going to use the smudge tool. So down at the bottom here, click and hold on the blur tool and select smudge tool from the flyout menu. Now still making sure that your shadow layer is selected. You want to adjust the brush size so that it doesn't quite reach the edges of the side that you're working on. So this brush side is pretty good for this edge. And then just click and drag a little bit at a time until you start to see that nice rounded shape come out on the shadow layer. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger to do this side since it's a bit longer. And the same thing, just click and drag a little bit at a time, and that shadow layer will start to peek out from behind the corner. And you can see now that it's really starting to add dimension to that curl. It's really starting to look as though the corner is curling right up off the page. So once you're happy with the way that your curled corner looks, I'm going to scroll back out to show you the finished effect. The last step that you need to do is merge those three layers together. So click once on the top layer, hold down your Shift key, click once on the bottom layer, then right click anywhere in that selection and click on Merge Layers, and now you have one layer that includes the background paper and the rolled corner. Now if you wanted to, you could even add a little piece of another piece of scrapbook paper in behind so it looks like it's peeking out from behind the rolled corner. And once that's done, you can continue scrapbooking on the background paper with the rolled corner. For additional digital scrapbooking tutorials, or for more information on where you can purchase my digital scrapbooking products, visit www.redleafdigiscrapping.com. Thanks for joining me.